to a special edition of Stuck in My Mind podcast. I am your host, WIZE, and I am very excited. My next guest, an entrepreneur, a fellow podcaster. I'm just excited to have her on the show. Welcome to the show, Beate Chelette.
I'm so excited to be here. Let's do this. We've been waiting for this moment. The
Yeah,
buildup was amazing.
we've had to reschedule quite
I
a couple
know.
of times. But I'm excited to have you on the show. This is gonna be fun.
Yeah,
All
same
right.
here.
All right. So what let's just start it off. What inspired you to create the women's code and how has it evolved over time for you?
Yeah, so two things to know about me. So I'm known as the growth architect. So under the growth architect, I do a lot of business building, business consulting, helping people to land planes. And then the women's code was something that I created because I found that specifically women oftentimes have a very difficult time to understand that there has to be a code of conduct. And I worked a lot of times with men in my life. I mean, who hasn't? But I realized that men have a very particular, some call it the men's code, some call it the bro code, some call it the secret code, whatever that might be. But there's certain things men just don't do. Like if another man helps you to advance, you don't typically stab him in the back. And when you go into an organization or you want to advance, then you are making friends with people, and then if they help you, you help them. And if somebody does you a favor, they make a deposit. And then at some point you go, well, if you ever need me, then let me know. And then you do that and you don't ask any questions because that's the way it goes. Women don't really have that. So women are under the women's code. What I realize is that women, we're not raised that way. There is no code. So who would teach us that? So a lot of times women are really horrible with each other. And when you look at kids in middle school, that's where it starts. And sometimes you wonder, it's like, how can little girls be so unbelievably mean to each other? And then it just gets worse and worse and worse for the rest of our lives until we eventually have wrinkles and cellulite. And we realize that we wasted all this time being mad at other women, when in reality, this is a systemic problem that's created by the system, so that half of the competition is busy fighting each other and not dealing with the bigger issues.
I'm sorry about that. Let me cut that off. All right. So you have an extraordinary story. You're a first generation immigrant. Um, what what was that moment that transformed your journey from $135,000 in debt to starting your company to Bill Gates?
It's this moment where let's just imagine this here for a second. So here I am, I'm $135,000 in debt. And I'm in debt because I am just at the tail end of 13 years of just hardship, adversity. And this adversity includes a lawsuit by a bad employee that betrayed me, that then took half of my business, or tried to. And I lost subsequently $500,000. That was followed by a lawsuit that cost me $130,000, then followed by September 11th, which wiped out my production business in one day. In 24 hours, I lost the remaining 500,000 of my business. And and every time I thought I was going to get ahead, something else would happen. And I got just beaten down. And so here I am, I'm $135,000 in debt. And I go to Germany. This is my last ditch effort. I mean, I'm borrowing money to, to, to pay interest on borrowed money. Well, and here I am, I'm going like, well, this is kind of the death spiral of business, isn't it? And my father has a stroke, and my father passes away because he didn't have a stroke, yet pancreatic cancer, and he dies 6 weeks later. So now I'm at the funeral. I'm in Germany, and we literally just buried my dad. Now my phone rings at the funeral, like literally, like the minute, I'm still at the grave. I'm looking at my pondering just what happened, and my phone rings in my office. Now we're losing the house. And in this moment, people always say, well, like, what surrender look like for you? Well, that was full surrender. There was nothing else I could do. I mean, my best friend had died. I lost all my money. I was deep in debt. I was a single mom. I was in Los Angeles. I was at a funeral that I didn't know how I was going to pay for it. And I fell to my knees and I raised my fist and I yelled at God. Well, really, that's the surrender story. And I said, if you have a plan, this would be an absolute excellent time to fill me in, because at this point, you just go like, come on, that's just not normal. It's like, who has this much adversity in their lives? And I let it go. And I said, well, whatever happens, happens. If I have to file bankruptcy, I will. If I can't make it, so be it. Something else will happen. And I flew back and I was prepared to literally file bankruptcy. And then I had received not too long later a letter from the White House. And I want you to now think about, in my desperation, I wrote a letter to the White House, to the President of the United States, and I asked him for help. And I did that because, if we talk about, being stuck in your mind, that I did that because my former mother-in-law was an absolute nag about it. I mean, she would pester me nonstop. She'd go, "You need to write a letter to the President of the United States. Why don't you write a letter? He's the number one guy in the country. If anybody can help you, it's him." And finally, I'm like, who the heck writes a letter to the President of the United States? But I'm going to write one just so we do not have to have this conversation anymore. Imagine my surprise when I get a letter from the White House. And it says, "The president is delighted to hear from you and sends you his best wishes." I'm like, what? So what that letter did, now let's be clear, the president of the United States never saw my letter. But somebody in the mailroom, some intern probably, sent it to the Small Business Administration. And I got to meet with with the deputy chief director of the Small Business Administration in the greater Los Angeles area, one of the most powerful SBA places in the country. And he says, "I'll put in what you put in." And so they found me a bank to restructure my debt and guaranteed, I think it's like 75% of the loan. If I would have defaulted, they would have guaranteed 75%. So the bank's risk was like nothing. And that freed up my line of credit. That brought me to break even. 3 months later, I'm, literally at the break even point. 18 months later, I'm the world leader in my category. Now the Bill Gates company and comes, because all they see is the meteoric rise after this low point. And they say, "Well, how do you do it?" I said, "I'm not going to tell you nothing. You want it, you buy it." And they said, "Sure, how much?" I said, "Couple million." And they said, "Fine." I don't have sound. I don't have sound. I cannot hear you. 1 second. That is not good. My microphone test.
Oh, well, actually, there you go. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
I don't know how that went down, but okay. So, listen, this it happens. It happens.
You know that
Technology.
it's Monday. It's human. We're who we are, but we figured it out.
All right. What are the what are the key strategies you use to help businesses improve their systems and maximize their profits?
Yes. So for anybody listening to this amazing show who is an entrepreneur, business owner, coach, consultant, I want you to think about it from this perspective of that, very much like the title of your show suggests, stuck in my mind. There's a threshold where we typically get stuck. And we get stuck at the same thing over and over again. For some of your listeners, might be $100,000. For some of them, might be 250. And then when you hit that threshold, then something happens, and you fall back, and you go back up, and you fall back, and you go back up, and it just keeps going. So when that happens, there's typically something that you haven't fixed. It's either a mindset issue, it's a skill set issue, or it's an action issue. So when I work with clients, I take them through what I call the 5-star success blueprint. And in the 5-star success blueprint, we have a very simple system. It has literally 5 words. And you figure out in this system, where the disconnect is. So the first one is the idea. What is the idea? Who does this business help? Why are you the right person to do this? Who is your ideal client, and what exact problem do they have? Then you go to the second piece. That's the offer. Is the offer that you're making actually solving the problem for that person that you just identified? And is it clear why you are the right one to make this offer? When you've done that, then we start building systems. then what do we need to do to get this offer consistently in front of these people whose problems we are solving? You automate before you hire. And then you go to the fourth one, which is the team, because then I know who I need to hire. Who is the team that I need to hire to build the systems and operate the systems that manage that offer that solves the problem for our clients? And that brings me to the fifth one, and that's who do I need to be as a leader who manages that team that operates those systems, that manages that offer and brings it to our clients to solve their problems. And when I look at this with my clients from this perspective and I say, where are we here? It usually becomes pretty clear very quickly because it's our diagnostic tool that I can say, okay, your offer is not solving the problem, or your offer is too extensive, you're doing too many things, you're confusing your client, or you have team members but you have no systems, so you're not consistently building up this business. So we follow this very simple 5-star success blueprint, which I really highly recommend to anybody, and you find it at 5-star success blueprint.com if anybody's interested in taking a look at it. And it's, I keep it simple. I know people are busy, but that's the order in which things need to go in for you to grow your business.
Okay. How do you approach working with unique personalities and big thinkers to build executable systems?
So I love people that have personalities that are creative, that are interesting people. And I come at it from the perspective that because I'm a photographer by trade, so I come from the creative industries. I've always been around the most colorful people in the industry. And when I was a producer, well, my job was to get these absolutely super creative people. And we're talking, people like Helmut Newton and some of the greats of in photography together for a couple of days and produce an outcome for a magazine or for an advertisement. And you have to be able to direct them to follow your process because you're the producer, but keep the creativity intact so they can do their best work under these circumstances. And so for me, that's what I learned in my background being a photo editor, a photographer, representative, and producer, that you have to create a particular space for creatives to still be able to think it out, to talk it out based on their learning preferences, so that they feel like you understand how they operate. It's my job, that's my skill set, to literally crawl into their minds and find the puzzle pieces and pull them out and then organize them. And we do this a lot of times live together, where we talking and then I say, so what I'm hearing you say is this and this and this and this. Which order does it go in? Is this first or this second? And so we build these entire signature systems just based upon what's in their head. But that's my skill set in helping them take that information out and organizing it.
Awesome, awesome. What are some common challenges you see leaders face, and how do you help them overcome these obstacles?
So a leader is somebody who is making sure that they make themselves as much obsolete from the day-to-day operations so they can do what they're best at, whatever that might be, on whether that's the thinking, that's the going to 30,000 feet, that's taking planes and looking at the terrain, looking at expansion. But you need to have a proper operational process and procedure set up so that you are getting yourself into freedom. So when I work with leaders, we look at the 3 phases of each business. So the first phase of a business is building it. So that's the business model. That's, how do we make money? Where do we get the leads from? Then the second piece is how do we grow it? So now we got some of these pieces in place. Now we need to figure out how do we multiply this? How do we organize this so that we have consistent lead flow coming in, consistent conversion coming in? And then there's the scaling part. And in the scaling part, the leader must make him or herself obsolete, because at that point, the business value goes up if you are not the operator, but the leader, and you have people that are operating the business. So the way I help leaders is I help them to understand what these phases are and then where they are in relationship to that so that they can either improve or back off a particular area.
Okay. So can you discuss the importance of strengthening leadership skills in business growth?
Yes. So when you look at yourself as a teenager, and sometimes you look back, Will, and we say, I made some really stupid decisions. And then you grew older and you made better decisions, but then you made other mistakes. And now you look at some of this stuff and you said, I really would not have needed to do that. That was just not smart because hindsight's 2020. But leadership is very much like that. You evolve. Your knowledge evolves. If you want to run a $1 million business, you're going to need to think and act like somebody who runs $1 million business. If you want to run a $5 million business, you need to think and act like somebody who runs a $5 million business. I'm going to give you an example. I was having a conversation in one of my groups, and there's one woman, and she says, I know that I can get a virtual assistant for $3. And I'm thinking to myself, yeah, you probably could get somebody for $3, but why would you want to get somebody for $3? You are, you just told me you got $2 million in government contracts over the next 3 years, and you want to have a $3 virtual assistant. I said, do you believe that this is aligned and congruent with that size of contract and that size of quality work that you're going to have to be deliver? No, I believe that I can get somebody for $3 an hour. I said, what are the qualifications for somebody for $3 an hour? Because even in India, Vietnam, or in the Philippines, or anywhere where we have a lot of large pools of virtual assistants that work for very reasonable fees, $3 is low in anybody's
Very
book.
low.
Is very low.
Very low. Yeah.
And so she goes, well, but she doesn't want to give up on it because she feels that she needs to pay the least amount of money. I said, well, how long will it take you to train somebody who's $3 an hour on just the basics? Because somebody who is willing to do it for $3 an hour is somebody who's desperate and has no skills. And she says, well, it's going to take me probably a couple hours. I said, what's your hour worth? So what? Her hour is worth $350, and she wants to spend 10 hours to train somebody who's $3 an hour. So I put that math in front of her. I said, so it's going to take you $3,500 in productivity lost, and let's not even talk lost opportunity here, to train somebody who you only want to pay $3. So if you were to pay somebody $20, wouldn't you be actually come out ahead? Because you didn't have all this onboarding time with them. And so that's how you need to think about when you want to be a successful leader. Am I acting like one? Do I have the mindset for how somebody like this makes decisions? So if my hourly is $350, then really every task that's less than $350, I need to outsource. Otherwise, you lose money. That's the example of Bill Gates when they said if Bill Gates picks up $1,000 bill that fell out of his billfold, he'll lose
Yeah.
money because
Okay.
his time is that valuable. And
Yeah.
that's the mindset of a leader, and that's how we work with leaders, is to say, well, how do you need to show up and what's the reality of it? And a lot of times we still act like we are in our first job, but we want to have a business that is on a completely different level. So we're looking for congruency and for actions that are consistent with that type of success.
Mm. So, what advice do you have for entrepreneurs who are struggling to scale the impact?
Well, when you don't make the impact that you came here to do, that means that you are not reaching enough people. And if you're not reaching enough people, then it is because you either not consistently taking the actions that it's required, you are not disciplined about it enough, you are, or you don't know what the actions are, and you are just making stuff up that's when you need a coach, a consultant. That's when you need to hire somebody who has done this or helps people like you. That's the shortcut. Or you just don't have the authority. So if you don't have authority or you're not looked at as an expert, then you need to start your authority building campaign. How do I get consistently in front of people so that I'm looked at as the authority in the industry?
Okay. So, so how do you balance empowering others while maintaining a straightforward, no nonsense approach?
Well, that's just a personality trait if you really want to know, Will. I mean, maybe it's because I'm German by birth, and I have this the strategic blood in me, but I operate very well at the intersection of strategy and spirituality. I believe that if you really truly want to be successful in life, you have to have purpose, and if you have purpose, you must be spiritual. I don't really know successful people that don't have a spiritual practice.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, they meditate, they do yoga, they bike, they hike, they go outside, they are very conscious about how they treat themselves, how they keep their mind under control, their clean thinking. So that's all disciplines and principles that you need to do. So for me, the balance really is to say, if you really truly believe in the spiritual principles that rule the universe, right?
Mhm.
Then those principles must apply to you. And I have this example that I tell, well, when we go out, now imagine you go for a walk in the spring and there's this beautiful oak tree. But this year the oak tree says, "You know what? I'm just not doing the hustle. There's not a chance in hell I'm going to take all my leaves all at once. I'm going to take 100 leaves and I'm going to do a slow rollout." And if people come and they admire the 100 leaves and a couple birds and squirrels come and they enjoy the 100 leaves, I'm going to do a rollout over the next couple of weeks. And then slowly but surely, I'm going to roll out all my other leaves, because why would I waste my energy on something like that? This principle doesn't exist in nature. So if a principle doesn't exist in nature, what makes you think it exists? That it works. I mean, it can't work, right?
Yeah.
So when you look at nature or science, it either is or it isn't. It either works or it doesn't. So the tree is either sprouting all its leaves or it's losing all of its leaves, but it's not a little bit. And so when you look at this from this commitment perspective, you say, am I fully committed, or am I trying to manage these principles, God, universe, I love calling it one source. Do I like to be playing God? Do I think that I know better? And we really kind of don't. Because if everything else works so wonderfully on instinct, the squirrels do what the squirrels do. They don't even need to think about it. The elephant walks hundreds of kilometers to find the watering hole. How the butterfly flies, what makes you think that you don't have that in you already? That what is rightfully yours is for you to rightfully attract. But we are most of the time in our way. So the balance and the lack of burnout, or this avoiding the burnout, comes from us recognizing that we are part of a larger theme, and that if we're in this flow and it's this energy, then things are going to happen to us that are naturally supposed to happen to us. And I have a great example for you.
Mm.
So, well, I have this idea that I am going to be a professor at Pepperdine University at the business school and teach entrepreneurship. That's don't ask me why. It's just been like a thing, when we live in the Palisades. So when my husband goes surfing, we drive by Pepperdine, and every time we drive by, I said, one day I'm going to be a professor and teach entrepreneurship in Pepperdine. So I go to this event a couple of days ago here in Los Angeles,
Okay.
and I'm standing in a group who is right next to me, the associate dean for the Graziazo School of Business for Entrepreneurship in Pepperdine.
Wow.
So I said to him, "This may be the weirdest opening line anybody has ever given you." I said, "But one day I'm going to be a professor at Pepperdine and talk about entrepreneurship." And he says to me, "Well, we have this one professor that's definitely going to be retiring in the next 3 to 4 years. So, yeah, here's my phone number. Why don't you give me a call?" I'm going like, this works. So it works.
Well, it works, but you have to take that leap and tell them like, yeah, I'm going to be I'm going to be a professor at Pepperdine. Had you not put that out there, right? The universe would have made it happen so that you meet him and be able to tell him like, hey, I'm gonna be a professor at Pepperdine.
Yeah, you can't even say it with a straight face because you were cracking up when you were saying it.
No, but I do believe in stuff like that.
I
You have to,
know. And then you go like, how is this even possible? Yeah, of course it's possible because that's what we say it's possible. I
Mhm.
mean, you promote this kind of stuff. I promote this
Yeah.
kind of stuff. And then we still seem to be shocked and taken by surprise when this happens. And so that's I think that's how we avoid burnout is that when you articulate your desire loud and clear. And I think one of the best mindset trainers out there is probably Abraham Hicks. It's a very high level law of attraction because she explains there's a difference between the law of attraction and the law of vibration. You
Mhm.
have to vibrate on that energy to
Yeah.
invite that kind of energy. That's very different than you eating Funyuns on your sofa watching Netflix and expecting the life to be good.
And expecting your life to change. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's really what I've been focusing on this entire year is to be much more in this vibration to say, how do I grab onto one thought that is this beautiful thought that I can then make bigger and bigger and be like a blanket over everything. And it's been amazing. So I have now it feels like almost like I have more time for myself and more time for things that matter to me. But because I do that and because I feel that gratitude and vibration and energy and love for my daughter, for my grandchild, for my son-in-law, for my husband, now his daughter is getting married, and I'm really giving myself permission to be present in these moments so I can feel this energy. Suddenly everywhere else the energy moves much more freely and better stuff is coming to me. And that I think is the key message. I know that's what you do on your show, well, where you really help people to understand that stop fighting.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the problem. A lot of people refuse to make themselves uncomfortable. They don't want to make themselves uncomfortable. They like being complacent and being in that place where they don't take risk. And they expect it like, oh yeah, it's funny because people say, oh, the law of attraction and none of these things work because all they think is if they just write it up on the board is that it's going to magically appear, but you don't put in any work into it. You don't put no effort towards it, so it's not going to happen.
100%. I mean, if we take this apart, I mean, you do have to make the phone calls.
Hmm.
You do have to do the work, the mindset work. You do have to do the meditation. And if you don't do the meditation, then find something that's similar to that. I have clients that don't like to meditate. I don't love meditating, but I'm getting better at it. And I found a great program on the app Calm, which is only like 10 minutes by this one guy who doesn't sort of do this Deepak Chopra stuff where it's a more human, most human meditation where it gives you permission for your brain to just go and do what it does and then helps you bring it gently back. That's 10 minutes a day. If I can do that 3 times a week, at least I'm doing something. When I drive my car, then can I put a YouTube video of, let's say, a mindset trainer, Abraham Hicks, or a podcast like yours or other podcasts that help with mindset? Can I listen to that instead of just listening to music all the time to fill my brain with stuff? But I think the most important part for you, for your listeners to remember is that your thoughts really matter.
Hmm.
Your thoughts really, really, really matter.
Yeah, and listen, it's I'm human. There's moments that I struggle with my thoughts and with even with the way even my self talk to myself. There's sometimes I'm not positive enough. I beat myself up once in a while. It's not I'm human. There's sometimes where I struggle with it and but then I catch myself. I tend to catch myself and realize, listen, be much nicer to you. You need to be much nicer to yourself. Like the world's already rough and tough. Don't beat up on yourself more anymore than you have to.
I think the self-loathing is an important conversation to have because the self-loathing comes from, and this is my personal opinion, I think the self-loathing comes from the way our educational system is set up. If you really think about it, our educational system is set up for average, for one particular type of learner, for one particular type of student, for one particular type of thing. And those are people that are high IQ, that are mostly introverted, that are able to sit down, not move, study, and are and learn by reading. That's what our system is set up for, not for anybody else. So you're taught that you have to sit still, you need to listen to existing information, remember existing information, regurgitate existing information, and then you get an A. And that's your life. And now you go out in the real world, Will, and people say, "Hey, Will, check you out, wise man. Um, what are you bringing to the table? What makes you so special? Why would I want to hire you?" And you go, nobody's ever really asked me that question, except my mother, who thinks I'm great. But other than that, nobody ever asked me what makes me special. Everybody else asked me, how can I be like everybody else? And we want to be like everybody else. And now in the real world, you are now on the opposite end of it because all the people that are very good at this method of education are either going, into whatever Harvard and the big schools because they have that mindset, or the genius, separates himself from the mass always, or they go into government jobs because they're very good following instructions. But what happens to the rest? What's the path for the rest? And so that's a confused group. And we are left to our own devices because we've been constantly ridiculed, told that we suck, that we talk too much, that we need to shut up, sit down, wait for our place in line. And yet here we are. We are the ones who have the greatness in the blood because we are the ones who are the unconventional thinkers, the innovators, the pushers, the makers, right?
Yeah.
So how do you reconcile that? And that's where the self-loathing comes in, because then you go like, man, I wish I could be like everybody else. Why can I not be fast like Jim, smart like John, pretty like Mary? And you have to find your own way. And that is, though, if you really think about this, if you can stop the self-loathing and you can give yourself the credit to say, this is the essence of entrepreneurship. This is the essence of entrepreneurship. Because you already had to overcome all this other nonsense that other
Mhm.
people told you that you should be, and you decided it wasn't for me. So you are here for something else. So how do you step into that and own that instead of feeling constantly sorry for yourself that you're not that?
Yeah, it's amazing. Just the transformation I've gone through from the beginning of my show to where I'm at now. Like when I first started the show, um, it was me, and I would just talk about what was going on at the time, which was at the beginning of the pandemic, and then the whole George Floyd situation, and then the election. It was just nothing but negativity. And I didn't enjoy it. I didn't enjoy the show. I didn't, and so I was like, I made it a conscious effort to shift towards more positive content, interviewing people, come having people come on, share their stories, and and just be more inspiring. And then as it went on, I'm like, okay, yeah, I want to be inspiring, but I also want to impact people. I want people to know that you don't have to follow the old system. There are people out here who are doing amazing things as entrepreneurs, as coaches, doing some great things out there that maybe you can learn from them. Maybe listening to them and having them inspire you and having them show you the way is what I'm supposed. And it's been amazing. It's really shifted where the show has gone because now I'm learning, my audience is learning, and it's just you can just see the difference, like the growth in the show itself. Where last year was probably one of my best years in podcasting, and it's because of amazing guests like yourself, having people come on, share their stories, and focus more on the positive aspects of life, not the negative parts.
And I like that you pointed it out that way. It is so easy to fall into that and to point out what's wrong with the world. And when we look at the elections, and we are back in another election cycle right now, and I mean, you thought the last one was bad.
It's just yeah, yeah.
I mean, you just look at what's going on, and you just grab your head and you go, people have obviously completely gone insane,
Mhm.
and logic and reason is out the window. But at the same time, I think why people like you and I are doing what we're doing is because we've been activated by a higher power to counteract this, and to help people really make a conscious decision, and to say it is very easy to be out there and to be angry at the system and what's wrong with the system and what people are doing and how poorly they behave. But is it not true that if we lead by example, and if we keep energy flowing at a different vibration, that it is almost as infectious as the opposite? So, and whether you're going in a downward spiral or in an upward spiral, I prefer the latter. But that's work. That's work. Because then you have to get out of your house. Then you have to read the book. Then you have to call the coach. You have to make the investment. You have to put your money where your mouth is, and you have to actually consistently take the actions, and you have to be honest with yourself and say, well, I did okay today, but I fell off the wagon. I had an hour where I was like back in the gossip and all this kind of stuff, and now I'm catching myself, and that's not who I want to be. I want to be in this positive vibration because I want to attract positive things, because bad things attract bad things. I mean, look at the political cycle right now, and
Mhm.
look at what they've put out and what is coming back to these people. It is nothing but anger and hatred, and it's getting worse and worse and worse and worse. I don't I canceled my subscription to the Los Angeles Times. I barely even look at the news anymore because I honestly, I don't see anything that I haven't heard. I don't see any solutions. All I hear is this finger pointing. All I hear is people, what now we are at the a danger of having a civil war because there's an army of 1 million people that are willing to kill Democrats. I mean, where are we? How far have we? Who thinks that this is okay? So no matter how angry you are, it's your family, dude.
Mhm.
This is your
And yeah,
family we're talking
and
about, right? Is
yeah,
somebody's
no,
family. Yeah.
it's crazy that people would be so divided and not
Over
like
one person.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Over one person. Now that by itself, that fact that one person can have that much polarity tells you who this person is. And if you look back in history, when the divisiveness was around one person, you kind of get a pretty big picture of
mhm,
it's either a saint or the devil. Really, there's really nothing else in between because nothing
yeah,
polarizes people either like a religious leader or like a very divisive leader. And I don't want to make this about politics, but I want to make this about clean thinking and decision making, and
mhm,
really understanding that I'm a grandparent, I'm a mother, I'm a wife, I'm a sister, I'm a daughter. And every single day of my life, and this goes back to the leadership question you asked me, I need to get up and say, how do I want to show up today?
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And that's what that was the choice I had to make. It
Yeah.
was, do I continue on this path of focusing on this negative content, or do I shift, or do I go to a path where I'm gonna enjoy the conversations, I'm gonna enjoy the content, and I'm actually gonna make an impact. Like I could have easily just kept going, but it just personally it didn't feel right.
Was no
And
resonance for you. Yeah.
yeah, I wasn't. But when I shifted and focused more on the positive aspect of it, and focused on helping people, That's what it was. It was just I focused on helping people, serving others. When it shifted to that, to the fact that I wanted to serve others and not serve myself, it just exploded.
And
It
and
just
and can I just say this really openly, and that makes me really proud to be on your show. I love the fact that you are also very community centric, and you're doing this for your community, and that
Mhm,
you are bringing people of all colors and shapes and sizes and opinions on your show to bring to your community the variety of thought and the different ideas that then your listeners that resonate with you can pick and choose from on what resonates with them. And
mhm.
that is a very powerful position to be in. And you should be very proud of yourself. And while we're at it, I'm just going to give you a shout out here for your audience. If you are not a subscriber of the show, please go there right now and subscribe to Stuck in My Mind podcast and give him a 5-star review. And I also really urge you to make a comment, an engagement comment, even if it's just a little green heart that says you're listening to this episode, is because the algorithm is handled by bots, by AI. And if there is engagement, then this episode or this show will be served on to more people like you that need to hear what we talked about today. It's a labor of love. Give Will some love back.
Thank you. I greatly appreciate that. Yeah, it is. It is. It is a labor of love. It's something that I, I shout out to someone that sent me a message, and it was a wake up call. It some of it made was true, and it hit home, and so I realized. But when I was sent the reply and explained the situation, explained everything that was going on, they kind of understood. They knew this because even though last year was one of the best years for the show, it personally was one of the most difficult years for me because my mother's health started declining
Mhm.
and she passed away February of this year. But I still continue to come on the show. I didn't let it affect how I was doing the show, regardless of how I was, whatever I was going through. I didn't I didn't bring it on to the show. I could continue with a smile on my face, continue to do the show, and it was like I said, one of the best years for the podcast. And that's because I wouldn't let what I was going through personally dampen what the show was doing. And so there was kind of some things that I kind of slacked off on it, and I appreciate that person sending me the message and telling me, "Hey, dude, this you're kind of slacking off on this, and people don't want." And it opened up my eyes, and so I just wanted to let that person know who they are. What? Thank you for the message, and I did receive it, and I appreciate it, and I'm working on improving on those topics that you specify.
That's why they call you the wise man. That's it. When we are honest and vulnerable about our journeys, it makes it much easier to have other people be vulnerable. We don't always have to be strong. And I'm very sorry to hear about your mom, but if I pick up one energy about your mom, she's so proud that you're doing this and that you having your voice heard. And that is the greatest legacy you can leave for her, that she's
Yeah.
given you the ability to speak up for yourself.
No, listen, it's all the goodness in me comes from her. 'Cause she was just um her door was open to everyone. Her house was open to everyone. She fed everyone who came. Like my friends love coming to my house because
Because there was
they would,
always food.
yeah, they would get fed. They would get fed. They would get fed without a doubt. They would be fed. And then that was the kind of person she was. And so to be able to have her legacy live on through me, and me trying to, if I could be half the person she was, then I'm good. Like just being half the person, because she was an amazing person, and she lived her life the way she wanted to live it. She enjoyed it. She enjoyed her life, and so so when I did receive that message from that person, and I explained to her, like, listen, everything that you're saying is correct. There's things that I need to work on. I'm not going to deny that. I'm human. I'm still.
Well, you're also a black man. Come on. I mean, it's not exactly like somebody says to you, "Hey, dude, you need to be more vulnerable from day one." People will tell you, "You need to toughen up. You know, you're a black man. You have to, there's certain things that you need to be prepared for."
Yeah.
That's a whole other story. But please tell me where in your community there are leaders that are telling.
No, it's now that we're accepting the fact that people go to therapy. It
Mhm.
is, because prior to that, if you told someone you were going to therapy, they cracked jokes. It was, yeah. It was an embarrassment if you told people, yeah, I'm seeing a shrink, or I'm seeing a psychiatrist or therapist or whatever. The people are like, "Look, what's wrong with you? Are you crazy?" Yeah. Oh no! Oh my God! I gotta stay away from you. It wasn't cool. It was frowned upon. It wasn't something that. It wasn't something that now is fine with everything that's going on. But growing up, it wasn't cool to tell people that you was seeking help, because they were like, "Oh, you're weak. You're
Well,
supposed to be
and yeah.
strong."
Yeah, and in that regard, again, I think that's why the work that you do is so incredibly important because it we all have our own communities that we speak to with our voice, and then there's a crossover for that. So I commend you for that because I mean, let's face it, I'm white, I'm from Germany, I'm a woman. There's a lot that I was able to do because of that, and there's a lot of it I couldn't do because of that.
Hmm.
Because, there's also a particular bias, but we all have something that we're up against, and then we speak up, and then we are angry about it, and then we realize the anger doesn't do anything. The anger only brings more anger. Then we have to figure out how do we transform that into a softer message that doesn't make us angry, because if we are angry, we're only going to attract angry people that then getting more anger. So you have to work on yourself first and get yourself to that place, which you have, and which I think is so powerful about your work. So I mean, I'm very honored and humbled that I can be on your show and share this message with your audience.
I'm so glad. Listen, I'm just so glad we finally got to sit
I
down and have the interview. It's been a work. It's been a work in progress for the past few months, trying to get this to happen finally. And you know what? When it's meant to happen, it will happen. And so I'm finally glad that you were able to come on the show and share your story, and just come on and have this wonderful conversation with me. I love it. Now is the part of the show where you get the solo screen, and you get to plug away, let everybody know where they can find you, everything.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for the opportunity to be here again. So, again, if you are interested in learning a little bit more about how you can grow your business or how you can figure out how to become an entrepreneur, the first thing I want you to do is go to whatsyourtalentworth.com. So, whatsyourtalentworth.com is a quiz that I did specifically to help everybody figure out what is your earning potential in this market. So, it's whatsyourtalentworth.com. It's a quiz. In a couple of minutes, you'll get a number, and then you look at this number, and if that's not the number you're making, then we probably should talk. I work with entrepreneurs, as I said, either when they want to turn an idea into a business and they need a model, or when they need to grow their business, or when they are at that third stage and it's really about scaling, potentially setting up for an exit. And you find me all over social media, but the best way to start is either with a quiz, or if you want to talk to me directly, go to uncoverysession.com. So two links for you, whatsyourtalentworth.com and uncoverysession.com if you want to speak to me. And with that, I'll give it right back to you.
Thank you, thank you for being such a wonderful guest. I appreciate it.
It's easy with a host like you.
You're always welcome back. I love having repeat guests. It's some of the best times. Um, yeah, you have an open door. You're welcome. You're
Thank
welcome
you very
whenever.
much. I appreciate that.
This was a great conversation.
Truly.
I love the energy and everything. Um, Thank you. I appreciate you being on the show. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you for having me.
But let me close out the show. Don't leave just yet. Let me close out the show, and we'll chat a little bit off the air. But again, once again, thank you for your time. This has been wonderful. I've enjoyed this conversation. I've enjoyed this episode. Like I've like last few episodes, I've really have had some magnificent people on, and I've really like some of these are some of my best episodes. And I feel like with each episode, I'm just gonna improve. But like right now, this is like one of the best. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, all right. Another great show in the books. Thank you, Kay Washington, for coming through and sharing the green heart. Appreciate you. Listen, everybody, thank you for the support. It's been a wonderful 4 years bringing Stuck in My Mind to everyone. Just to see the growth from where I started at to where I'm at now, it's just been a wonderful journey. I appreciate you all. Please subscribe, share if you haven't. If you're not subscribed to the show, if you catch the replay later on, thank you very much. Share it. It's a wonderful episode. I would really want everyone to really catch this episode. This is an amazing episode. As always, big shout out to my Real Wise fam, Poppy J, Brandy J. Love you guys. Shout out to the boss lady. Love you and appreciate you. And as always, a big shout out to all the essential workers out there. God bless y'all. Be safe. You know how your boy Wise does it. Peace out.